Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larsen, a high-performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Yes, it is time to flourish. And so welcome back to the Flourish Frequency, where we do explore the energy shifts that help you elevate, expand, and fully step into your next evolution. And today we are diving into a powerful cosmic moment, fitting as it is that today is the Spring Equinox, a time of perfect balance, renewal, and transition. And as if that were not enough, we're also in the middle of eclipse season here, amplifying the energy of release, realignment, and new beginnings. So I am thrilled to really dive into this topic today. We're going to explore three key themes here: the equinox and finding balance and what that really means for you, and how the moment of equal light and dark can help us recalibrate in our own lives. The eclipse energy shift and what the recent lunar eclipse revealed, and how the upcoming solar eclipse is activating new opportunities. And then really the key point is aligning your frequency. How do you integrate these powerful shifts in your life so that you can spring forward into your next level self with clarity and with confidence? And I am thrilled to have back once again the amazing Dr. Pat and explore this topic. Happy spring, Dr. Pat.
Happy spring to you. And I love this topic, and I love the way you're going to talk about it, because I got myself a little bit over the top with all the negativity around retrograde.
Oh,
and I finally had to post something that said, Mercury rules our business planet because we're a communications company. So for us, it slows us down enough to think.
I love actually that you're bringing the retrograde up too, because like that actually wasn't originally part of this conversation, but it also happens to be falling in right now. And of course, Mercury retrograde is the one everyone tends to freak out about. And I know for me personally, especially with Mercury, I like to really look at it and, in terms of, it's just asking you to slow down a little bit, to look at things, not moving so forward without taking the moment of pause and a chance to look at it. And it will sometimes bring things up from the past to revisit. And that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you choose to look at it and how you choose to interact with it. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, this is exciting. I can't wait to hear what you're going to talk about.
So let's dive in. The equinox started at 5 a.m. this morning. I think it was Eastern time, I believe, right around 5, maybe it was like 5:02 or something like that. And what I love about the equinox, what it symbolizes, is that moment of perfect balance. So that moment of equal light and equal dark. And yet it's a moment, right? It's not an entire month. It's not an entire day even. I think it symbolizes for me this idea that it's a moment of perfect balance. But the rest of the time is not perfect. The rest of the time is really about recalibration and balancing, and balancing not from a place of like, I'm perfectly balanced, but it's like if you're sitting on a balance ball and you're kind of finding your balance always. And I think that's what the universe is doing every 6 months, is, it slowly kind of moves away from the perfect balance, and then it comes back into perfect balance. And what are your thoughts on that?
I was talking about this morning on a show with Valina, and and I was explaining that I grew up as a kid in the Bronx. And so when you grow up as a kid in the Bronx, cement is what you know. I learned how to play handball at a very young age. I was king of the monkey bars. Hello. But for us, the seesaw, everybody know what a seesaw is? Okay. So we couldn't just seesaw, because that's kind of boring. Right. So we created a new game. And the game was two people would get on the end I would get in the middle.
Oh,
They would get off, and I had to balance the seesaw.
oh, whoa.
And we all took turns at that. And it got to be such a cool, I think that's why I have such extraordinary balance now. And, I was sharing something before the break that happened to me that was really unusual,
Yeah.
but it really epitomizes what it takes to balance.
Yeah.
Now, as a young kid, you're not weighing what you weigh now, but it's a matter of how you balance it. And each of us would take turns to see who could be on the longest.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Well, fast forward, broke a finger, tore my knee up, blah, 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 and still got up on that seesaw.
Yeah. You get back on when you start to fall off balance, right?
But isn't that life, though? Isn't that what we're
Totally.
talking about today? What is that song that where you can knock me down, but I get
I
up,
get
knock
back
me
up
down,
again.
I get up.
Was that
That's
Chumbawamba?
yeah.
I'm so dating myself. I know that song.
Good on you right there. But that's what we're talking about today when we're
Yeah.
talking about the dance between the light and the dark. And it's not just about the equinox, it's about the solar eclipse, the lunar
Yeah.
eclipse. But this is where, in some calendars, this is the date astrology starts for 2025.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that I love that story that you just shared actually about the seesaw, because it really also makes me think about what does it take for you to stay in balance when maybe the world around you is kind of like trying to pull you out of balance and trying to pull you left and right and center. And it's so important to have that groundedness from within, right? That centeredness from the inside, so that you're not getting pulled into or whipped into, I should say, the chaos that often is going on outside. And so, I imagine I'm picturing you right now as a little girl on a seesaw and having to find your balance,
Yeah.
right? It,
Yeah.
it reminds me too of like if you're on a like surfers when they're on a surfboard. It's like
Oh,
if you don't have your balance on the inside, if you're not strong in your core, you're going to get whipped around with the waves and likely pulled under. But if you're strong in your core and you can plant yourself on that surfboard, you can have the exhilarating ride, right, of surfing those waves and really enjoy the excitement and the energy that's in those waves.
and
So
the seesaw is a symbol for me now. Of course, I
yeah,
shared that story. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because there's a lot that we're going to cover today, but
yeah,
it's understanding the symbolism and what we're talking about today as well.
yeah,
And then on identifying area of life that you're in balance. And let's just be really clear about this for a minute, because you and I know, have talked about this.
yeah,
I have never been a fan of balance. I have
yeah,
done corporate workshops on work-life balance, and then one day I stopped doing them.
yeah,
Because what I realized, we were trying to tell, especially women, you got to have balance. No, if you got 3 kids at home and you got a full-time job and you're raising a family and da, 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 da,
yeah,
where's your focus? You're never going to get a 50-50 split. So how do you create harmony?
yeah.
How
It's
do you
harmony.
create
Yeah.
harmony?
And I
Yeah,
know that is exactly what we've talked about in the past. And
yeah,
you and I are both in total agreement on that. And I think because we both have that background also of, being told you got to have work-life balance. You've got to make choices and you've got to have priorities and you've got to know what your priorities are to know what balance for you looks like.
yeah,
And balance doesn't look like for me what it might look like for you. And that's part of us being unique.
yeah. Now, if you would have talked to me when I was 17, hello, I
Yeah.
had one thing in mind. Work 3 jobs so you can party the rest of the time.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
a whole
my
different kind
game.
of balance.
It was like my game plan for life, because
Yeah.
I grew up in New York. This is really an interesting conversation when we talk about between the light and the dark, right?
Yeah.
What we're really talking about is how we play in all of the arenas, whether it's light, dark, or every shade in between, isn't it? So
Yeah.
what have you found? How do we celebrate the light, but also celebrate the dark? Because I just
Yeah.
had a major lesson And some people call it the dark night of the soul. I don't really think of it. You know what I think about it like? It's like when you have the white
Yeah.
shirt on and you spill your latte on your white shirt. That's that spot.
Yeah.
That's the way I consider darkness.
Well, when I think of light and dark, I'm thinking of like our shadows, right? Like the shadow side. And when we're trying to, like, many times people are trying to avoid their shadows. And again, there needs to be a balance there. If we're in avoidance of our shadows, then we're actually not getting the gift that the shadow has for us. And if you think about it, you know, your growth happens in the dark. A seed grows in the dark before it ever sprouts, right? And a caterpillar dissolves in the darkness in the cocoon before it ever becomes a butterfly. So it's like there's this opportunity here for you to balance and come back and really embrace shadow. And again, that's what the light and the dark really represents for me symbolically when I think of the equinox, and really being able to embrace it, and knowing again, once again, that there's that one moment where everything's in perfect balance, but the rest of the time we are really surfing between the two. I'm going to bring the surfboard back for, I don't know why, but I guess I've got a surfer mentality in my head right now. Maybe I want to go back on spring break.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But you
Yeah.
know, let's talk about how we personally, for you in particular, how do you personally experience the shifts during eclipse seasons? Because I think
Yeah.
it's really important, one, to be aware.
Yeah.
But it's not to, oh, it's like what I've learned is stop overthinking it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I like to really use, and again, there's a collective consciousness that comes with all of these events. So New Year's Day is a collective consciousness, and we can tap into that energy. Here again, spring is a collective consciousness. We can tap into this energy of new beginnings. And so for me, I like to really take a look at, as I'm moving out of winter and into spring, you know, what things have I been hibernating with? And is it time to let go of? And what seeds am I planting? And that I'm, you know, really looking to bring into fruition, and what's ready to blossom. What seeds
Yeah.
have I already planted? What seeds maybe I planted back in winter? And when I say seeds, like, where are some things that I set intentions for? And it's now time to, like, have I been nurturing it? Is it time for some of that to come above ground? And again, are there weeds that I need to pick so that they can flourish, so that these seeds that I've planted can come up? So again, you know, from an energy perspective, it's feeling into that also, and feeling what feels heavy, what needs to be let go of. Is it mentally, emotionally, or physically something that I'm ready to release, so that the seeds that I've planted can actually come up and come strong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I forgot that this is where we were entering. But let's give an example, because
Yeah,
this is about energy, right?
yeah,
And this March equinox really represents a time. There's like a portal.
yeah,
There's a
yep,
portal. And we move from, in this particular, we move from one form of consciousness to the next level of consciousness. That's what this is about.
yeah,
Now, if you're into astrology, you will also know that Pluto moving out of Sagittarius and Capricorn, where it's been for like a lot of 36 or something years, I don't even know. Now we're into Aquarius. So it's a different
yeah,
energy. And so the veil is thin. So here's how thin it is. So 2 days ago, for whatever reason, Linda and I were like, we've got to rearrange that room you're in, and we've got to do this, and we're going to move this out of it. And so today
yeah,
we finished it, not knowing, right? Not
yeah,
having a sense that this is what was moving us towards that. And I
yeah,
want to ask you about that sudden ending, sudden beginnings. And they don't have to be like drastic. You don't have to lose
yeah,
your job over this equinox.
yeah. Well, and here actually is segueing into the next conversation, really, because it's also, you've got this eclipse energy around you, which does help to ignite some beginnings and endings. Like it, right? That's really what eclipses are great for, is helping you move energy, move it quickly. And sometimes it moves without you intentionally moving it. So if you feel like there has been some abruptness happening where things have kind of moved for you, that's also in being able to embrace that energy, right? Because the lunar eclipse, which just happened last week, right? A week ago today, actually, it
Yes.
was a full lunar eclipse. That likely for many people may have brought, emotional revelations, some endings or clarity about something that potentially has been building for months for you. So I would encourage listeners to kind of take a look at, over the past 6 months or so, is there anything that just kind of came through for you that might have had an ending? I was sharing with you before we got on that I had just recently taken a trip down to Mexico, and I came back like with a really bad respiratory infection. And what was really interesting is it took me like a week and a half to get over it. But every day well, let me back up. When the trip that I took to Mexico was a retreat, and I had set an intention for that retreat to release anything that was not um, allowing me to flourish, to fully flourish, right? For my next level of evolution. I set that intention the day before. And from the day I got there, my body was the thing that was like kicking and screaming. And what was really interesting is I could have sat there and looked at it like, oh no, why is this happening to me? But instead, I remembered, wait a minute, you just set this intention. You literally said this was the entire purpose for coming here. Of course, it's going to kick up everything that you've asked for so you can let it go. And every single day of that retreat, I felt better and stronger until the very end of the retreat. And then that's when I came home with this respiratory infection.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa, is this taking me back again? I thought I just got better and got stronger. But again, what I realized is, no, this is actually stuff clearing from my lungs. This is, you hold grief in your lungs, right? I think it's grief. Yeah, it's grief that's held in the lungs. I thought, oh, wow, there has been a lot of stuff that over the past year or so that I've had to grieve. And I know I've talked before in the podcast or the show about, my parents both having dementia. And so there's forms of grief there that I've had. And, you have to hold a lot of that in sometimes because you're navigating the daily life.
Yeah, you do. We do hold it in. We hold our breath. So let's wait a minute. Let's talk about this real quick, because what kind of infection did you get?
Respiratory.
Hello. And so what you've gone through, and you asked for it to be cleared, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
And so we hold our breath. I mean, this is another thing, and you just said it.
Yeah.
The responsibility of taking care of parents is enormous.
Yeah.
And, we're dealing with a lot of that now. I mean, if I get one more call from a client, coaching client, about how worried they are that their parents are going to lose their Social Security, or Social Security will be, what is the word that one client called? Will be, I can't remember her language. It was very strong. But the worry is, mom and dad, they ain't even going to know it's happening.
Yeah.
But I have to pick up the burden. And so we're seeing this, this equinox is about endings and beginnings.
Yep.
And we're looking at from now to the end of the month, let's be clear, just like what you're going through. So what do you make of that lung infection you got? Did you clear it all out there, Beth?
Total clearing. And do you know that, like, again, like I don't take any kind of medication unless I am forced to, quite honestly. So I still was not going to, because I knew that my body was actually stronger and stronger and stronger. And every day I was like, I just need to actually, let this move through my body. And I kept reinforcing it, the mental and the emotional side of it, and actually doing some breath work, even while I was struggling with the actual infection. But I realized last Thursday on the eclipse day, it popped into my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, go to a salt cave. Where's a salt cave? I didn't even know where one was around here. I hadn't gone to one here, or I hadn't gone to one since I was in New York. And all of a sudden I'm like online Googling, is there a salt cave anywhere nearby? And sure enough, there was one not that far from here. And it was a quick drive down. I went 2 days in a row to that
Wow.
salt cave because salt is so purifying, right? And I mean, within 2 days,
Yeah.
completely gone, cleared, and I felt better. And right now I feel better than I felt in years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
I've moved so much. And so I think the eclipse reminded me like now's the time to go. Now's the time to clear this. And so it was perfect for me that it happened on a Thursday into a Friday and that I could actually get there. I literally had just gotten home from the trip and booked straight into the salt cave and felt so purified coming out of it. So that's how
Yeah.
I used the eclipse
Well,
energy.
but think about the eclipse energy. What are we talking about? We're talking about something blocking something else,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
what we're talking
Exactly.
about. But only for a hot minute. I mean, in the reality of the universe and when that happens, it's interesting. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they were just quoting me some scripture, right,
Yeah.
about how they referred to their lives, and this went on for about an hour in a coaching call, and I really just listened. But
Wow.
I grew up with a mom that had her own version of what these writings meant. She had a version of what every writing was
Yeah.
meant. I don't care if it was a Quran, it didn't matter, but she had her own version. And this turned out to be true. So this person got finished, and I said, fake name, Mary, this, I don't know how many chapters you just read to me about Job. I said, you know that was only 9 months in Job's life.
Mm,
You
interesting.
could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah.
And then I said, you've been going on for 2 years.
Wow.
So Job only went on for 9 months.
Yeah.
So if you're going to reference Job, time to move on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Time to move on. Time to let
Now,
go and
I'm
move
not a
on.
big scripture person, but there are some stories that my mom used to tell us about all the
Yeah.
time. But part of this is understanding the eclipse energy and also what the acceleration means. The other thing that we should
Yeah.
also point out for the astrology people, and I'm going to be talking about this tonight on the show with Mark, this is also about Neptune moving from
Hmm.
Pisces to Aries.
Yeah.
Now, look, every time you say Aries, people are like, da 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 da. No. So, what does it mean? You're moving from a highly volatile energy into a self energy. So, when
Mm.
you move to Aries, it is time to focus on the self.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting you're saying this because I recently realized the importance of your north node and your south node. Like
Oh my gosh.
I didn't fully know that until recently, and a mentor
Woo.
of mine actually brought it up to me. He's like, "What's your north node?" My north node is Aries, and my south node is Libra. So, my whole uh, mission in this lifetime is about self and being confident in self and moving forward. Whereas in the past, I've always been about collaboration, not collaboration, but balance, more about balance, and would sacrifice myself in the process for others, right? Putting other people's things in front of mine, whether that was at my corporate life. I definitely did that. I sacrificed my own health and wellness to and worked like a dog for other people. And I've noticed this pattern in my life, but not until just recently did I realize that I was doing that. And he's like, yeah, look at it. Your South Node, that's what that has all been about in your past lives. And you carried that into this life, but this is the lifetime where you actually make yourself a priority. And you're now stepping into that energy fully. And I'm like, whoa. So yeah, it's funny you brought up Aries because again, for me, that's another way of using this energy and really realizing, okay, this eclipse is here for me. What have I let go of that allow that, maybe I have been sacrificing myself for, and how did I set stronger boundaries? And so that I could actually embrace the energy and spring forward using the equinox energy. And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly why I went
Yeah.
on that retreat for a couple of weeks. That's exactly why I was clearing everything that I was clearing. And I am like so on fire right now.
You and me both. I mean, we did it in different ways, but also in
Yeah.
India astrology, I follow the East Indian astrologist. But
Yeah.
also we should really mention about this upcoming solar eclipse,
Yep.
because in their astrology notion, it is a powerful but challenging event. And I'm going to put a caveat, if you have not done your work. Okay, let me just say that.
Yes.
But what it is, it's a flow of cosmic energy. And what it's all about is you confront your hidden fears. And I bet you had to do that if you went through a
Yeah.
cleanse. I know I went through it.
Yeah.
But, what happens during this is that this is where the mind and the body is seeking clarity and renewal. And if you are clogged up, let me just use that term.
Yes.
If you are clogged up, there's no place for new ideas to come in. And the
Exactly.
lunar eclipse, on the other hand, is, when the earth passes, this
Yeah.
is often associated with the emotional body. So
Yeah.
here we have them all coming together. It's like a smorgasbord of energy. It's like a buffet of
Yeah.
energy releasing and new beginnings. And
Totally.
I'm excited about that.
Dive into it. Yep. Yep. And I think so. I think we're going to take a quick break here, but when
Cool.
we come back, let's talk about this. Like, how do we actually use all of this? What are some tools and techniques and things that you can do to actually work with this energy and surf the waves of all this cosmic energy out there? So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back. All right, we are back with the Flourish Frequency here, and here we are talking about this like crazy cosmic portal that we are in right now, with all these energies coming together. And I know I don't know why I keep coming back to the surfboard analogy, but I feel like
It's a
we're
good one.
surfing the waves of all this cosmic energy right now. And I'll take it back to where we started and saying that it's so important for you to be grounded in this energy, or in your own energy, so that you can ride the waves of all of it, so that you can masterfully, kind of surf out there without getting pulled into it all.
Yeah.
So,
Let me just
really,
comment on that for a minute.
yeah, please.
Okay, for all y'all surfers out there, there's there's the eye of a tornado. There's an
Yeah.
eye, and in the eye, it's
Still.
deafeningly, it's deafening silence.
Yeah.
When you hit that inner of the wave, the eye of the wave, and you're riding the eye of the wave, the sound of the wave crashing dissipates.
Yeah.
Everything around you dissipates. It's a moment, and sometimes it's just seconds, but it's seconds where you're so connected with the sea and your soul. It's a moment that is, I'm not even doing a good job describing it, by the way. So all you surfers, if you just go email Beth if you have a better explanation for it. But it is such a moment of peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And surrender.
Oh, it's funny you said surrender, but what immediately was coming through as you were saying that was also serenity, right? It's
That's the
surrender
word.
and serenity at the same time. Like, it is that perfect stillness. And that is the still point. That is, again, what we're talking about here. It's like being grounded in that still point, being plugged back into source in that still point is really, it's the 0 point. It's the 0 point of the field too, that we can pull anything we want to into the center with us, as long as we are in the center, staying in the center and not letting that whirlwind around us pull us off. So, being grounded. So here we are talking about, like, what do you do with all this energy? What are some tools and techniques and practices that you can do to keep yourself grounded and to keep yourself really strong in your core? It's funny, we were talking about the trip that I took to Mexico, and what happened for me there. We were just talking a little bit about how the story that you choose to plug into is the way that story is going to play out. So I think I want to touch on that for a second, because it's so important for staying grounded. I could have chosen a story of, oh, woe is me, I got a respiratory infection. Oh no, this happens to me every time I travel, which I have a story about, because I do keep creating that scenario that when I travel, I come back with something. But what I chose, like in that moment, that, yeah, I'm human. I had that moment where it was like, oh no, here it goes again. Here I get sick again. I had that moment, but I realized, wait a minute, like, I don't, that doesn't feel good. That feels heavy. That feels, really weighting me down. And that's going to knock me off center. So I had to make a conscious choice to choose the story, to choose the narrative that I was going to plug into. And that had everything to do with how it played out. And that has everything to do with how I feel right this moment and what's coming out of it. So, when we're talking here about surfing these waves of and all the cosmic energy out there, being grounded is part of it. But that also stems with you being conscious of the thoughts that you're thinking, the stories that you're playing, what you're choosing to plug into and what you're not. And I will always say your emotions are your guidance system. They tell you when you are plugging into a story that is a truth as you know it, maybe, that's not your higher truth. It's going to feel wobbly. You're going to feel like you're ready to fall off that surfboard because you're plugging into something that's not a higher truth. And so for me, again, that story of, oh no, here I go again, and I'm going to get sick, and, playing it out in my imagination in the worst case scenarios was definitely not a higher truth. And as soon as I started to plug back into my higher truth and choosing the narrative that I was going to plug into, I was able to turn it around in a very short period of time. So for me, this groundedness, this choice point, this conscious awareness is part of the tools of staying grounded so you can navigate eclipse energy, so you can spring forward into your next evolution, because that's the other thing. Spring is about evolution, right? It is about growth, but there is no growth without also having some contraction, right? There's nothing birthed. Let me put it this way. Because I actually just put this out on Instagram yesterday, that contractions are a part of birth, natural birth, right? Like a baby is birthed because there is a contraction. So the contraction is what allows the woman to then push. But what do they teach you to do? They teach you to breathe, right? They teach you to breathe and then push. And the contraction is exactly what allows the baby to be birthed. So whether you're birthing a baby or a business or a next version of you, to think that there's not going to be some contraction that's denying the shadow. That's not wanting to experience the shadow. The contraction is not a bad thing when it happens. The contraction, you can choose to look at a contraction in your life in whatever way, shape, or form. And if a retrograde is bringing in some contraction, well, that's just pulling you back a little bit. But you can choose to realize that it's that contraction that's actually gearing you up to move forward. Or you can buy into the narrative of, oh no, woe is me, and not experience the breakthrough. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so part of this, let's just tie it back in. And I want to be very clear. This is not an astrology show, so you can go ahead and look things up. But every sign, every energy is going to hit people differently. And what you're saying is that it doesn't matter. There are certain specific things during these 3 moments. This is an event, an equinox, 2 eclipses in a short period of time. What did I say? 11 days?
And a retrograde.
10, 11, 10, 11. Oh, and what's in retrograde? Hello, Venus. But this is really a time now to really think. And for those of you out there, if you don't have if you're really interested in astrology or other things, great. But if you're interested in what Beth is talking about, you need to call Beth really to walk through. And breath work is critical.
Yeah.
It is critical. It is ancient. It is historical. It goes back as far as we can actually believe. And by the way, let's just be clear. Once upon a time, when we didn't have industry, we did breath work naturally. Why?
Yeah.
Try to run away from some big animal. But
Yeah.
part of what we're talking about in really from an astrological point of view, there are 4 cardinal signs. And if these are one of your signs, whether it's Aries, what is it for? Aries,
Cancer.
I know Capricorn is one of them. Libra is Jessica, and Cancer. If
Yep.
these are your sign, this is a moment, especially I've got 4 planets in Capricorn and my moon, my sun's not there, but significant milestones and amazing opportunities to catapult yourself.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to what you said. If this is going to happen to you,
Yep.
did you do what Beth is talking about and clearing yourself out and making some changes? Because what happens when we don't clear out those energies? What happens when we just don't pay attention to those Kairos moments?
Yeah, we carry the baggage forward with us and we don't get to experience that breakthrough, which by the way, Cancer Sun, Capricorn Moon. So
Oh yeah,
I'm hearing you, I'm feeling it.
yeah, fasten that seatbelt.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I just want to keep reiterating this. It's so important that you choose the stories, you choose the narratives. That is a tool that you have available to you. When we're talking about, using this energy to your advantage, if you aren't choosing your story is choosing you. And it'll be the story of the past over and over and over again. So you have to choose your story. You have to choose what you're going to do here. Breath work is another tool. I love that you just brought that up. And we talked about that they teach you to breathe when you're, about to give birth, that the breath is the tool to help you push forward. But it doesn't just help you push forward. It helps calm the nervous system. It helps put you into parasympathetic mode. So you're not in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? You're able to actually move yourself forward, and you can soothe yourself so you can move yourself by using the breath. So I'm glad that you mentioned breath work. I'm a huge fan of breath work. I happen to be a breath work facilitator, and I am leading an equinox breath work tonight. So if anybody's interested in that, if you're listening, go to my website at www.bethlarsencoaching.com. That's Larsen with an E. Go to the work with me page and you'll see on there the somatic magic journey that you can sign up for. And that is happening tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. It is a special spring renewal equinox breathwork journey. So not only do you get the breath work, but it's a guided coaching and includes NLP and hypnosis in there too, to help really reprogram.
Wow.
Move you powerfully forward. Yeah.
There's a movie. I'm not going to date myself, but I'm going to mention the movie. It was a great movie. I think it was Angela Bassett in the movie. And when the movie first came out, I was intrigued by the name. The name of the movie is called Waiting to Exhale.
Oh, yeah.
And that movie pretty much sums up
Yeah.
how we hold our breath in life. And if you go through that movie, you see that she had to find the courage. She had to break through for change. I mean, literally, that movie is the poster child movie for what we're experiencing and what the opportunities are when you learn to exhale.
Yes. Yeah.
And see, breath work takes you to a place. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to sound like this is 101 energy work, but I will tell you, out of all the energy modalities, nothing is easier than breath work.
Totally.
And yet nothing could be harder than breath work with NLP and changing the mind.
Well, and really breathing deeply. So it's, we're talking breathing deep, like which most of us are just not doing these days, just because we've spent our lives constantly reacting to things and holding our breath, right? Like literally and metaphorically holding it. So in a breathwork journey, you're going deep. And it's such a simple thing. Like it's simple. It's not complicated. And yet people make it hard because they're not conditioned to do it. So the breathwork journey takes you really deep with a very simple breath. But it's like I said, I mean, you're getting the breath, and the breath changes your brainwave state. If you do the breath long enough, it doesn't even take a long time to get there. But when you use your breath and you're going deep with it, you take your brain waves from that overactive beta brain that's constantly overthinking everything, and it drops you down into alpha and then theta. And theta is where the doors to the subconscious open. Theta is where we get in there and we can do the reprogramming. And theta is where the prefrontal cortex shuts down and you're able to really get in there and seamlessly start to plant the seeds. And again, here we are talking about spring, right? And jumping or leaping forward here into the renewal. We want to plant these seeds now. Now is the opportune time to do. So the great thing about a breathwork journey is it helps you uproot all the stuff that's in the way. I mean, you can release years worth of stuff in a single breathwork journey. So it pulls all that stuff up and out, but at the same time, you're planting seeds for what's next. And it's like so powerful.
Well, this is why I'm encouraging people to really work with you, because I want to be very clear about something. When I said breath work is simple, I didn't really mean it was easy.
Yeah.
Because you're doing breath work for a reason. And that reason is to get you, I'm just going to generalize for a minute. Yeah. Generally to get unstuck. I'm just going to say that. Yeah. Just, you can fill in the rest of what you want. However, when you attempt to do it alone and you're not familiar with what the outcome would be, boy, you better have somebody ready you can run things by. Yeah. Because how many times have you done a breathwork class or taught people and people go through it and they start to cry right on the call?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it could be anything from crying to like hysterically laughing. Quite honestly, it can be anything, and we want all of those emotions up and out. The reality is that people are stuffing them down. And so it's all the damage that's being done because we're stuffing them down. It's like we want them up and out. And that's the beauty of breath work. And I do, I run these virtually once a month, breath work journeys. So it's not even, you don't have to be there in person. I can actually help co-regulate because we know there is no time and space constraint in the quantum world. So you can co-regulate with people. And the great thing about a breathwork journey is you are always the one in the driver's seat. You are in charge of how deep you want to go with it. And if you're going a little too deep, you can pull back. That's totally up to you as an individual to stay in the driver's seat with your own breathwork journey. I'm there to coach and to guide and to help facilitate and co-regulate if necessary and support. But you get to be in charge of your own journey there. And that's the beautiful thing, because it's your breath. And it's something that you carry with you even after the journey. There's also something that's really important, I think, about the breathwork journeys that I want to touch on here too, because it's not just about releasing trauma and, pulling all the negative stuff up to the surface. It's not just about that. The other incredible benefit of breathwork journeys is that theta brainwave state is also the most highly, richly imaginative state, right? Theta is the state that you go into when you're in REM sleep at night. So when you're dreaming. So if you want to tap into incredible creativity and start to unlock true inspiration, a breathwork journey that takes you deep into theta is perfect for that, right? Because you've got the brainwave state there, but you're also breathing in spirit, inspiration. So it's the 1-2 combination. I can't tell you how many times I've had people in the middle of a breathwork journey pull their journal up. I always ask them to bring their journals with them, and they'll sit up straight in the middle of the journey and start writing stuff down because they're getting these downloads. I try to encourage people to stay in the journey, of course, but immediately after a journey, sometimes it depends on the individual. Sometimes that particular journey for you is about moving a lot of stuff, and it's time for you to just rest and relax and nurture yourself and take care of yourself. And sometimes it's the time to grab that journal and just write as fast as you can because it's all coming in.
Yeah. And, I work with somebody, I have coaches I work with because I can't tell the difference of what to do when. I mean, and I don't think I'm unusual in that way. I think many of us don't know, do I turn left here? Do I turn right? What am I feeling? Until you learn to trust your gut. I was telling Linda this morning about something where, we're making a decision about something. And I said, I just know that's the direction to go. I just know it. Now, what am I trying to say? I'm not a know-it-all, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is inside of me,
Yeah.
inside, there's a knowing.
Knowing.
But
Exactly.
sometimes I don't know
Yeah.
and I'm confused.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at getting unconfused without bouncing it off somebody that looks at things objectively. And I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
You know, I make a statement. Here's the thing. If we were meant to do all this alone, each of us would have gotten our own planet.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah.
That's a famous line from The Matrix. Um,
I don't
so
remember that.
yes, it's both in The Matrix, but also in The Matrix for the Resurrection, where he's kind of mocking Morpheus, and he says, "Here we are," and here we
Oh,
are.
okay. The here we are. Okay.
Here we
I
are.
thought you meant the other one.
Yeah, but part of this is here we are, and
Yeah.
what does that mean? It means there's still an action that we have to take,
Yeah.
right? So what
Definitely.
are some of the rituals we can talk about to help people today? Because I know for me, it was rearranging this room. And by the way, rearrange it, it's great. And I'm going to rearrange it again because I really want to face that way
Yeah.
instead of this way. Although I am facing this way, when I face this way, I'm facing south, I
Mm,
believe, or
okay.
east, south. If I face this way, I'm facing east. So you can't see my hands. But if I face that way, I'm facing east, and the west is in my back. And for some
Mm.
reason, that feels good to me.
Yeah.
But my best friend is a triple Virgo.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I have to change it. But why do you want to change it? This feels so good. I said, and it just dawned on me in the show.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
I want to face east and have the west to my back. Isn't that fascinating? I
It's
just
interesting because
came to that today.
I'm sure there's a whole feng shui side to all of that as well.
Oh
But
my
what
gosh.
I like what you're saying though, of like tapping into what feels good for you. There's that inner knowing, right? It's like trusting your own intuition and feeling into your own energy and feeling what feels good for you. I don't know that there is a right everywhere. I mean, again, a feng shui practitioner would probably like shoot me for this, but
Yeah.
but you've got
Yeah.
to trust your own inner wisdom. And if something is feeling heavy or it's feeling clogged, like you were saying earlier, you know, the word clutter comes from the old English to clot. I mean, that's a literal clogging, right? So clutter can be mental, emotional, and physical. It can be your space. So yeah, sometimes it can be as simple as rearranging your space so that you can actually breathe and so you can think clearly. So that's a ritual that you can have. The breath work for sure is incorporating that, whether it's a daily practice, which is can be a very short breath throughout the day, using different breaths to help you regulate throughout the day. But again, I think if you want to take advantage of this energy right now that we're talking about with the equinox and the eclipses and the even the retrograde energy, now's the time to do a journey. Now's the time
Yeah.
to go for the deeper breath work.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just going to promote this one more time. If you're interested, come join me tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's quite a ride. And if you can't join us live, there is a 7-day replay available. So
Perfect.
go to my
Yeah.
website, BethLarsenCoaching.com.
But I want to get back to something you said about that. I think it's highly important to come up with learning how to do this daily,
Yeah.
because what I find is it's the difference between having something linger and not do it and then have to catch up almost,
Yeah.
as opposed to staying proactive and letting the waves, strategize themselves every day to your
Yeah.
benefit. That's the difference. I don't want to have to go back after a day where I haven't done a practice. I don't want to have to go back and have to correct everything that really didn't align for me. And it's
Yeah.
because of me that it didn't. I don't want to have
Yeah.
to redo that.
Yeah. And I think a great practice on a daily basis is to start your day with an activating breath that moves energy and that actually gets you, perks you up and gets you going, and ending the day with a down regulation breath. So an activation breath, any breath work that is going to be invigorating and moving you and actually is like longer on the inhale than it is the exhale is going to be activating. Breath of fire, if you're familiar with breath of fire, is it's a yogic breath work, Kundalini breath that actually is really activating. And it's a great way to kind of open you up for the day. And then something down regulation, like a 4-7-8 breath, right? And inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, and doing several rounds of that. That's a down regulation. That's going to calm you before you go to bed and before you drift off into that sleep, because whatever you're focusing on at night before you fall into sleep is really what you're going to marinate in for the next, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on how long you sleep. So if you're going to talk about a ritual, that would be a great kind of routine ritual to get into.
Yeah.
Activation in the morning and down regulation at night. Although there's also something to be said for doing some down regulation in the morning if you wake up stressed.
Oh, no kidding.
If you're that person who's already wired that way currently, you got to rewire yourself. And you can do that by starting off your day with some down regulation.
Yeah,
so
that usually happens when you haven't done the breath work the day before or the day before that. And then you get to day 3 and you're like, OMG, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're talking about here is a rewiring process, right? And it really depends on the individual and what their individual needs are. But those would be some really powerful rituals. I don't want to use the word routine really, but a ritual practice that will get you into position for you to be able to take whatever energy is out there in the universe and harness it and leverage it and be able to use it for your own growth and evolution, no matter where you are in your life.
The other thing too is what you mentioned today in the show is this equinox is about clearing out, but it's a high level of creativity. And it's really difficult, or I have found difficult in my life, to allow creativity to emerge.
Yeah.
When I am clogged up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just said something so important. It's got to emerge from you, through you, right? It's not, I've got to figure out creativity. That's not how creativity works. That's a left brain approach to a right brain process. So yeah, you've got to be able to unclog yourself so it can move through you. Yeah, definitely. So
wow, thank you for this today, Beth.
This hour
I really
went fast.
needed to hear it. Yeah, I really needed to hear it. Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up today's episode, I just want to take a moment to reflect on what we've explored here. The spring equinox reminds us of our power of balance. Where in your life do you need to realign? And are there shadows that you can embrace so that you can actually experience more light? The lunar and the solar eclipses, these create a profound energetic shift. So what's ended for you and what new beginnings are calling to you? And then finally, aligning your frequency. It helps you step forward with clarity. How will you embody this transformation in the days and weeks ahead? I invite you to take some time here today to do some own journaling on your biggest takeaways here with us. And over the next week, pay attention to your energy, pay attention to your insights, and pay attention to those Kairos moments, those opportunities that invite you to step into something new. So thank you for joining us and tuning on to the Flourish Frequency. If the episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to us here and share it with somebody who needs to hear it, and stay connected for more insights to help you flourish. Until next time, remember that every shift is an opportunity to step into your highest self. We'll see you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larsen. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsenCoaching.com. That's BethLarsenCoaching.com, Larsen with an E.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.